Welcome to episode 2 of the Bokeh and Mocha podcast. I'm, of course, Griff, joined on the chair with Jen. And over at our production side there's, of course, Christopher and Abigail, our technical director, as well, joining us on the show here. Episode 2, we're going to be talking about the different genres of photography and all that you can do with photography. And I know that this could easily be like a multi-hour episode. We're just going to do a quick overview of like what everything is categorized as for the most part. And of course, it's like a Venn diagram. There's a lot of overlap in what is this and what is that, and whether or not they fit into a specific genre. As a music fan, the different subgenres of metal and pop and alternative and whatnot. You guys can appreciate this as well too. But for starters here, I'm not going to ask Christopher this question. I'm going to ask Genevieve this question here. Genevieve, do you know what photography means? I'm putting you on the spot. I recognize that.
Well.
It's Greek. I can tell you that much.
Is it going to be? Oh, you're meaning like the actual.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well. Oh.
It's all right. Like I said, I'm putting you on the spot.
Honestly, I have no idea.
Okay.
I mean, for me, photography would mean shooting a still image in the moment of what's going on around you.
Mm-hmm. That's a good explanation and a good definition there. So this is where the history major in me comes out, because I was a history and literature major when I was at Washburn University. But photography, break it down. Photo means light. That's where you get like photons and stuff like that. Graphy is Greek for drawing. So you are drawing with light.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's basically
neat.
What photography is 100%. It's drawing with light. So this episode, we're going to be talking about the just a quick overview of photography, the different genres, and basically giving you like kind of a quick definition of what everything is that you can expect in certain genres of photography. We have three main ones that we're going to be talking about. Of course, there's portrait, there's landscape, or not necessarily landscape, but nature, and then just kind of like a miscellaneous grab bag of kind of the rest of them that don't quite fit into those two distinct categories. So Jen and I are going to be talking about, first of all, portraits. That's probably the most popular form of photography that I can think of anyway, because it goes back to like the Polaroid days where, you around the Thanksgiving table, everybody gathers around grandma and you take a quick little snapshot. That's technically a portrait photo right there. But portrait photography can go into, professional business headshots where, you've got like a bank or a lawyer or something that wants to have a headshot for their business. School photos for your kids, that's portrait photography. But then there's what's another one? Boudoir is another type one that kind of delves into like a split between like fine art and portrait photography and whatnot. But it's all about capturing a person or a subject within your shots. So you can break it down to a traditional studio shot. You can have an environmental shot as well too. There's candid, which is where street photography can come into play as well too, or even documentary or photojournalism, photographing protests, war areas, just things like that, or natural disasters and how we as humans respond to those events. And then, of course, there's just in general creative ones, the more artistic side of things. For me, that gets into I want to be a cosplay photographer, is kind of where I'm leaning towards. So like going to Comic-Con and setting up a little photo booth for people who are in costumes. They put all this work into their costumes.
Right.
Might as well get your picture taken with that there. And, I've got like a little RGB light that I can set up. So if you're dressed as the Hulk, we can make you even greener if you want. If you're dressed as Deadpool, we can splash you with a little bit of red and whatnot to make it pop a little bit more. Stuff like that. Just to get real, and that's the reason why I like portrait photography and why I, as a photographer, am leaning towards portrait photography, because there's that. It's not just my art that I'm doing, it's also the subject's art as well.
Mhm.
Like, I like listening to what they want. If they've seen something that they online that they want to recreate, I definitely want to take that and put my own spin on it as well too. And we
Right.
work together. Usually, whenever I have like a subject, because I've done some street portraits as well too. When we get done, I thank them for making art with me, kind of thing.
Right,
So
right.
yeah.
Now, I've got a question
Mhm.
because I've done my best friend's senior photos,
Mhm.
right? Do senior photos also count
They
as
do.
a form of photography? Or, well, it counts as a form of photography, duh.
Portrait?
But portrait
Yeah,
photography.
absolutely. It
Okay.
absolutely does. And even if it's just a full like a front facing or like what is it, three-quarter facing,
Mhm.
just a nice professional glam shot, or and I'll have to dig out some of my photos, but I was a guitar player in high school, and I did a lot of posing with my guitar on railroad tracks and with some specific lighting and stuff like that. We'll get into railroad photography, by the way, too, because what I did back then in the early 2000s technically wasn't legal, but but now it's come even more full circle and whatnot. But that's the
Right.
overview of portrait photography. If it has a person in it, it's portrait photography, and then you can break it down into even more descriptive
Subcategories.
subgenres, I guess would be the correct term. Whether it's candid, whether it's professional, whether it's environmental, documentary, photojournalism, whatever have it, that's
Mhm.
technically all portrait photography. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd like to get into more portrait photography.
Mhm.
And with working with Chris, I do have that opportunity.
Mhm.
And we've done a couple actually now that I think about it. And they don't seem as difficult as, I thought they would be. I
Mhm.
mean, yeah, you've got your lighting, you've got your ISO, you've got all your settings you gotta
Mhm.
edit, but very, very interesting
Yeah,
to do.
it's all about making your subject comfortable, and we'll be talking that a lot more in detail when we get into a specific episode about it. When we come back here on the Mocha and Bokeh podcast, we're going to be talking about nature photography. That's coming up next on the Mocha and Bokeh podcast.
And welcome back to the Bokeh and Mocha podcast. I am not Griff, for anyone who is going back on here and saying, hey, that's not him. I am Chris. We have switched seats again. Griff is back over at the desk right now. I'm here to talk about nature photography with you, Jen.
All right.
We talked about before, I've done 15 years of professional photography, and in addition to that, my wonderful thing I like to do on the side is nature photography.
Right.
And nature, we talked with Griff just a minute ago about people photography and
Yes.
portraits. Nature is the absence. Whoops! I hit my microphone. Nature is the absence of people, but not just the absence of people, it's the natural aspect of what we're having there. So
Right.
we have the floral, we have fauna, we have landscapes, we have all sorts of different uh, categories, subcategories within nature itself.
Right.
What some people, though, don't realize is it doesn't have to be the absence of man made items. We can still have nature photography with man made structures in there. It's
Right.
just more without the person itself. Some of the ones I really like doing, of course, is nature with landscapes. If anybody ever would come down to the studio and check it out, like almost every picture that I have on the wall, the big ones out on the wall, are all of landscapes of when I lived in Colorado, the beautiful Colorado Rocky Mountains.
Oh.
Can't get enough of those.
They're always beautiful no matter what angle you look at them or what height you're at, whether you're on top or below.
Oh yes, yes. I'll never forget the first time I went on top of Pikes Peak or America's Mountain. And do you know why it's called America's Mountain?
I do not.
That's actually where America the Beautiful was written, was on top of Pikes Peak.
Really?
So it's now called America's Mountain because
I've
that's
become
where the
more
poem
knowledgeable.
originally was written from. But going up there and being able to look west and see nothing but mountains, and then look east and see nothing but those golden plains that are talked about in that poem, it's just incredible to be able to see those.
Oh, yes.
But I capture a lot with nature. We see some of my pictures, the astrophotography now. That's kind of a classification in
Mhm.
nature. You can also get nature shots even in a wonderful thing we call the zoo.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Like when we went to the zoo, I mean, it was for a completely different reason we were there, but while waiting to do what we were originally there for, we went to the zoo in the town we were in Great Bend, and Chris got an amazing picture of a lioness just chilling out. She was just enjoying herself in the sun. It was a nice warm day, so why not? I mean, I would lounge around too in the sun if I could, but I'm human, I have responsibilities.
Right? And one of the things too, you can both find nature pictures just everywhere. Just take
Oh,
a
yes.
step outside your backyard.
Exactly.
If you've got flowers that are growing in the backyard, there's nature. You've got birds that come in and go on the feeder, that's nature.
You gotta.
So you don't have to go out in nature, and I use
Right,
air quotes
right.
very loosely on that, to be able to get nature photographs. You can get them just by stepping outside, walking your kid to school. You could be able to see wildlife just run around on the playground, which
Mhm.
I say that because when I was taking my son to school one day, we actually, in Colorado, we had to park a little ways from the school, and as we walked over to it, my son's just like, "Dad, why is there a deer at the swings?" And there was a deer with his nose pushing on one of the swings.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just-
I would have laughed.
Yep. And of course, I was a bad photographer. I didn't have my phone or my camera with me, so I couldn't be able to get the shot. But that's something that it happens that quickly. You can get nature
Mhm.
anywhere. And more than just with that, you're documenting a point in time.
Mhm.
For those who were knowing about our wonderful Great American Eclipse that came back April of 2024, that was classified as nature because the eclipse happens in nature.
Right.
And for those of you who were lucky enough, like myself, to be able to go and on tour to wherever, I went to Texas because, of course, I've got family down there. So we just drove down there to visit family. But we got to witness a total solar eclipse, something I had been wanting to see ever since I was my son's age. Just little elementary kid learning about the solar system and say, I want to see that. Took many years later before we finally got the opportunity, but I got to see it almost in our own backyard here.
Mhm.
I think you were here in Hayes when the eclipse came
Yes.
through. You got to see a partial eclipse, right?
Well, yes, I got to see a partial, and I have seen a full totality one before. It was one a couple years back when I was
Uh-huh.
still in high school. My parents actually pulled me and my siblings out of school to go to Nebraska. We stayed
Mhm.
at Sheldon Reservoir, camped overnight, and then the next day we were prepped and ready to go to see the total solar eclipse, and it was amazing. It was one of those things that it's like, will I be alive to see the next one?
Right.
Because they only happen few and far between.
Yep. I believe the next one that's coming through here is in 20 years, coming through our
I'll
backyard
be
here.
40, man.
I don't even want to say how old I'm going to be when that happens. I'm going to be up there.
60. Somewhere around that frame.
Somewhere around that. But I remember that one was a 2019
Mhm.
one. That actually happened the day after my wife and I said I do. And that was how we kicked off our first day
Heck
officially
yeah.
being married, was got to see a partial solar eclipse from our backyard. So it's always been something that's been part of us for here. But nature is all around us everywhere. And when we come back from our next break, we're actually going to get into some more details on other different aspects. These are more minute, or not minute, but more unique subcategories within the category of photography that don't just fit into a broad category of portraits or nature. They have their own. So when we get back from Bokeh and Mocha, we're going to have Griff join me, and we're going to kind of discuss some more of our areas that we've taken pictures of.
All right.
Welcome back to the Bokeh and Mocha podcast, where we are going over the finer detail, not finer details, but the overview details of photography, what it is and what it encapsulates. This is what we like to call the miscellaneous section. These still technically probably fall into the two main ones of portrait and nature photography, but they're a little bit more specialized and subcategorical, if you will. So I'm going to be talking about architecture photography. Architecture is not portrait photography because there's, you're going for no people in it, but it's also not necessarily nature because, it's man-made structures that are happening within nature. It's us encroaching, if you will, on the natural order because we need to have skyscrapers and hotels and whatnot. But architecture photography basically boils down to it's a man-made structure, whether it's a barn, a hotel, a skyscraper. My dad, we talked on the previous episode that you absolutely love trains. Mm-hmm. My dad has a fascination with lighthouses, and which is funny because he has lived in landlocked Kansas his entire life. But he loves lighthouses. Whenever we would take trips out to the coast of some type, he would always try and see if he could if there was a lighthouse there, he would immediately grab the Polaroid, the Kodak, and snap a couple pictures of the lighthouse while there. But that's architecture photography. Mm-hmm. Architecture is about capturing the man-made structure and looking at the geometries. How when you frame an architecture shot, it's trying to encapsulate how big the thing is without blowing it out as well too. But also for as far as a career in architecture photography, if you look on Zillow, you have real estate photography that somebody has to take those photos of the layout of the house that you're looking at and dreaming that you can have one day. That's all taken by a photographer that goes through each room, tries to capture how big they are with the size of it and the outside of the house and the structure of it. So that's basically what architecture photography is.
And, I think it's kind of funny how we're talking about architecture and we're talking about miscellaneous because the topic that I'm bringing up is the exact opposite of these large, just massive structures. It's the small, it's the macro of the world. So we go from large, tall skyscrapers to the eyes of an insect or to the details on a quarter. For those who've ever actually seen any of my work, I took an hour and a half trying to photograph a quarter. I mean, not a lot of people say they take that much time to photograph such a simple thing.
This is why they say photographers see the world in a different way than the rest of the people do.
Absolutely, we do. Absolutely. Because when I look at a quarter, most people say it's 25 cents. I looked at it. This was a quarter from I wanted to say it was from the late 70s, but it had so many nicks and scratches and everything that there were stories. And as a photographer, my goal is to share a story.
How many games of pachinko did that quarter buy?
Exactly.
How many pinball games did that quarter buy? How many slushies was it used for?
How many gumballs did a kid get to be able to have because of that quarter? Exactly. And it's almost 50 years worth of storytelling in that one coin. And my goal was to capture not just it's a quarter, but to try and capture that much detail. In order to do that, you got to get into macro. And from someone who goes from a side of doing real estate photography, macro most people never see the world in that microscopic level, let alone take the time to capture that.
Mhm.
And you see a lot of people make that as a career, especially going through like National Geographic. The one that comes to mind is there was a gentleman who he spent his entire life doing macro photography,
Mhm.
and his picture that made it to the National Geographic cover is that of a dragonfly, both eyes
Mhm.
on the cover, filled the entire cover,
Mhm.
but it's so clear as if you were miniaturized yourself and staring at this giant of a thing. And
Mhm.
macro really does that. It brings the microscopic to our macro version, or what we can be able to see as a normal everyday life.
Mhm.
And it's always amazing how we can go polar opposite back and forth.
Yeah, absolutely. And with macro photography, it does take a little bit of a special lens. It does take a lot of lighting as well, too.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So, it's its own subgenre, but it can also be classified as nature photography too, because technically speaking, that dragonfly would be a nature
Yep.
nature and wildlife photograph, even though it's on a macro level, and that's why it's its own little subgenre.
Yep.
I'm going to talk a little bit about fine art photography. Now, fine art photography can delve into portraiture or landscape or nature or macro for that matter as well too, because fine art photography is about capturing that emotion. It can basically like kind of encapsulate all forms of photography if you think about it. Boudoir, like a stylized like portrait of if you're playing with light, like some of those like extended delay photographs where you're spinning a light behind the subject and you're getting that full ring
Yep.
of them behind them. Or it could even be we had recently here in Hayes the 5-state photography contest.
Oh, yes.
And you and I were at the reception. We talked about this, where there was just a picture that somebody took from their car that was just covered with fog and
Yep.
rain.
Yep.
And but it evoked an emotion from us as well too. And I think you and I even said at that point that only a photographer would think to snap that particular picture.
And it was incredible. I mean, the choice that they did of just taking that picture told a story. Not just it was raining, but it told a story, as you said, the emotion behind it.
Mhm.
You're trying to share what you felt in the moment. And personally, as a storm chaser, of course, I felt excitement because it's weather.
Yeah.
But to some people, it might be more somber or more relaxing.
Mhm.
And fine art is definitely something that will bring up more emotion than just here's a picture of a person.
Yeah.
I don't mean to say it that way, but
Yeah, no.
Here's a picture, and now you've got more detail and more story behind it on such a simplistic concept.
Yeah. To toe the line between like this is a picture of a person, that would probably be what your like commercial business portrait would be, is like, this is me. And then if you look at like a senior picture or a boudoir picture or a cosplay picture, it's like, this is a story. This is vulnerability. This is whatever you want to roll it into. And, this is not something that you would necessarily put on your business page, but it's more like, this is what I would be, posting on social media or something, or blowing up into like a wide frame to have it over the fireplace or something. This is the family. This is whatever.
Yep.
Kind of thing. So.
And that's exactly it. I mean, I could easily see the person who took a picture of that rainstorm having that eye that they can be able to have an image that they probably have sitting over their mantle that's a 3 foot by 4 foot image that when you walk in, you're just like, oh. And one of the things of fine art that I think we need to also touch is abstract. Taking that, something that we normally would see every day, and tweaking it. Bokeh, part of our show name, is fine art because of the fact that we have now created something completely different than what's there. And that's what bokeh really can represent.
Yeah. Thank you for bringing up abstract because it could even be something where like something is just so blown out that you can't tell what it is, but you know that there's something there, and it's like it's just like an abstract painting. It's just a random assortment of lines, and whatever you see, it's like an ink blot test. Like, what do you pull from this? Or Rorschach, that was the word I was looking for.
That's it.
Rorschach kind of thing.
Yep.
So,
and you get from that to how can you use fine art or anything as a business. It's not as easy to make fine art in business. But one of the things that people also talk to me and ask me about is I run a retail shop. I don't want to just take pictures of my retail, my products. And there's a whole line of product photography. So moving into that, if you like doing fine art and that kind of emotion, that stuff can also be brought into products because you're trying to instill an emotion into somebody to be able to see that product in a different light. Not just, here's a product, you need to buy it, but more of, how can I see myself using that product? And some people look at it like you go to any store, go to any place, leave the podcast, push it on pause, walk into the closest commercial business that you're in, and there will be pictures of some product. And if you're a photographer, you could be able to kind of see what emotion they're trying to instill to get you to purchase that product.
Well, to touch on that, you look at a menu at a restaurant.
Absolutely.
You're going to buy a dish based on how it looks, how it sounds, how it looks on paper. Part of a dish is presentation, as well as, like when you look at those Michelin chefs with like their micro food that they're doing, but it's all about plate presentation as well. You're probably not going to buy something that is like, I would buy something that's slathered in gravy, but if it's like dripping off of the off of the plate, if it's not framed properly or something like that, it might just look like a pile of puke or something along those lines, because gravy can kind of look like that from time to time.
And, I think when we were discussing what we want to do for this podcast, we were all three bouncing to figure out what episodes we want. As we talked about earlier, this is our overview. This is the million-mile view of all photography, and we could never capture that in under 30 minutes. So each of what we're talking about today is pretty much going to be an episode in the future. When we get to products and especially restaurant products, we can show some of the tips and tricks to be able to make it where you can make that product stand out, and the tips and tricks that they use to make things look like what it was.
Food dresser is a real career that you could get into as a photographer.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh yeah. And it's amazing to see just how much we can do in the photography world, not just for ourselves, but to be able to make it as a commercial version and be able to make a living off of it. I mean, I'm still a photographer that is working as a commercial photographer, but I'm a photographer first and foremost because I go out and take pictures of stuff I want to do. My astrophotography, there's not a commercial line for astrophotography, but it's something that I like doing. Whereas for you, street photography is kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I do street photography for myself. I don't do it for other people. That's entirely me, and it helps me to just like kind of. It's like going out to the batting range, and you're not going to hit the home run, in the batting cages, but it helps you train for that home run, if you will.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Well, sadly to say, this is going to be the end of our second episode for this one. But next week, we're going to be talking about equipment. And the biggest question that always has to be asked, do I need to spend all that money to buy all that nice equipment to get started?
I'll tell you the short answer. The short answer is no, but we'll talk about that more on the next Bokeh and Mocha podcast.
Absolutely. So until next time, keep shooting and keep sharing.